Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another AP Environmental Science screencast with your AP Environmental Science teacher, Mr. Stano. And today we're going to take a look at evolution and biodiversity. So we have this beautiful planet we're on, the Earth, and for the past 3.7 billion years that life has been able to kind of move along, progress, and sustain itself, the temperature of the Earth has not changed that much and has remained, I guess, on a scale kind of stable. It's this stability that has basically helped life, or been able to let life live and flourish for as long as it has been. If we go back those 3.7 billion years, and even a little bit further back, really within the first times of Earth, going ahead about a billion years, those were the building blocks of life. Everything that was needed, molecules that were needed to basically allow life to move about, progress, and evolve the way it has. And you can see here, during those 3.7 billion years, this most recent part, how we've gone from those single-celled prokaryotes, moving into our eukaryotic cells, and then finally into multicellular life. Kind of taking the bigger picture into it, we can put it on this clock, which a lot of examples usually end up leading to. We can see that humans really only appeared just recently, within 2 seconds of that 12. So it's really been life without humans. Now we're here for about 1.8 million years, and things are changing quite a bit. Basically, what we have, this 3.7 billion years, where life has been able to evolve, is taking place through natural selection and also through mutations. Those mutations are needed because they allow for very subtle changes in DNA that can be inherited by offspring. Genetic variability, just the differences between species and even organisms within the same species, allows for some characteristics to move on to the offspring that may give it a better chance of survival. So what we need are three conditions necessary for biological evolution: genetic variability. You have to have some differences in DNA within members of the same species. Traits must be heritable. That means they must be able to get passed on to the next generation, so they don't die with the parent generation. And traits must lead to differential reproduction, where that trait that gets passed on to the offspring leads to some sort of fitness, to some sort of success in reproduction. If it does not, it may get passed on and move on, but it won't really allow for that trait to enter the gene pool in any sort of effect. Then we have coevolution, which we hear about, is basically where species interacting with each other. This constant back and forth contest, which gives a temporary genetic advantage over the other. And we usually see this in predator-prey species, moth and bats. We constantly see this, how there's a slight tweaking in that, where like the pressures put on the bat, putting pressure on the moth, allows for just a slight advantage in some of the moths to kind of move ahead and the other ones to die out, being taken out by the bats. And then this will go back and forth. We also see hybridization and gene swapping. Hybridization, we see this occasionally. The liger will come up, breeding tigers and lions to get this liger, this abnormally large creature that basically at that point is usually infertile, these infertile offspring. And then we also have microorganisms can change genes without sexual reproduction, horizontal gene transfer, which we'll talk a little bit more when we start talking about a little bit into more genetics. Limits on adaptation through natural selection. The population's ability to adapt to new environmental conditions through natural selection is limited by its gene pool. Basically, how many organisms are there, that differences in genes and how fast they can reproduce. Bacteria, for example, have that really short generation time, so they can reproduce relatively quickly. So it allows this kind of like runaway effect if I can say that, where it can constantly change to an adapting and to a changing environment. whereas humans, we have a relatively slow generation time. So if that environment changes relatively quickly, we may not be, it just may not be in our cards to survive that change. Evolution through natural selection is about the most descendants. Basically, the more offspring you have, that becomes more fit, and you know, that is a bigger chance for your genes to get passed on. And we usually don't see this genetic perfection. It doesn't happen. The environment's constantly changing. Though you may be better suited for an environment than over someone else, it doesn't mean you're actually perfect for that environment. Geologic processes play a huge effect in looking at evolution. How the plates are constantly moving, the Earth's plates moving, bringing certain land masses in closer proximity to each other or farther away, leading to some sort of geographic barriers set up, volcanic eruptions, causing slight changes in climate, which may cause some populations to die out, earthquakes. Basically, all this stuff allows for evolution for some species that was fit, maybe all of a sudden to die out, and open up new areas for species to move into. So this is just taking a look at the geologic plates and how they've moved over the past 225 million years. And you can see here, we have Pangaea, the supercontinent. And then moving ahead, you see the Laurasian continent, and it's opening up of the sea in between here. Moving more, starting to look a little bit more like present, but still, this is allowing gene flow here. And actually here in Pangaea, you can clearly see how gene flow and organisms themselves actually can move and migrate between the continents. And then finally to present now, we have these geographic barriers, which allows for speciation to really kind of take off. Climate change and natural selection, once again, we've had crazy changes in climate as far as ice sheets moving through glaciers and all moving about, where organisms that can't move, they get completely eradicated when we have these glaciers moving through, these ice sheets moving through. And then receding to open that land back up for organisms to come back in. Other catastrophes, asteroids. Short story about that on Long Island I'll bring into class about asteroids or possibly comets that might have impacted near Quebec, possibly wiping out much of the megafauna about 18,000 years or so, or actually a little bit sooner, about 13,000 years ago, causing megafauna on Long Island to be basically completely eradicated. A little controversial, but the example does exist here. We also seen this with dinosaurs going back to 65 million years too, something along the same lines. Well, that's it for this screencast. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back where we'll talk about ecological niches and adaptation. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Good night.